Welcome back to Back Corner Comics, and today we are going to be talking about The Spirit, specifically the Warren Magazine version of The Spirit, which as you can tell is in a magazine format. This series was published by Warren and then later on picked up by Kitchen Sink Press. We are specifically looking at the first 4 issues, and obviously that's not none of the Kitchen Sink editions, but those are good as well. Maybe one day we will look at those, but I really wanted to just highlight my favorite format to read The Spirit in. So yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, this is the first issue of The Spirit, and as you can tell, new first issue collector's edition, 8 big stories by Will Eisner. Something I will say is that of course these are way out of print and you can only get them in the aftermarket, but I do want to let you guys know that this sells for a high price if it's like in a pretty decent condition or whatever, but I spent $10 on this. Do not spend anything more on it, especially when it looks like this. You know, this is a great reader's copy. I'm a reader. I'm not like necessarily a collector. You know, I'm not going to encase this in ivory or amber or whatever the hell they do. But so do not be discouraged if you watch this video and then you want to run and get your own story or get your own copy. So yeah, there's 8 stories in here. The rest of the series obviously takes the anthology approach. There's the man himself, Will Eisner, who is the creator of The Spirit, and The Spirit was this very well-loved Golden Age comic. It was done in the factory sort of way where Will Eisner kind of established the plot line, and then there was various inkers and pencilers. If you know the history of Wally Wood, you know that he participated with The Spirit for a little bit, and those stories are pretty neat and pretty cool. They are collected in the magazine format at a certain point. Not in this one, but yeah, let's get into it. So these stories are fun and interesting. If you're familiar with the archive editions, those collect The Spirit in terms of, from beginning until end, the first issue to the last issue. But these magazine formats kind of give you the best stuff right away, which, I really appreciate. As you can tell, Will Eisner's cartooning is phenomenal. The splash page with the titles are always very fun. The lettering is phenomenal here. So yeah, I'm just going to quickly flip through these. But this is my favorite way to read The Spirit, I think you're getting the best of everything kind of on the get-go. You don't have to collect, up until 15 volumes to get the really good, juicy stories. But The Spirit was, I believe, a precursor to Batman. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's the case. Here you have a bit of like a Dick Tracy kind of parody thing. Man, Will Eisner's style is just classic and it's timeless. I first became aware of, and you also get colored stuff, and we'll talk about who colored this in a second. But I became aware of this format of The Spirit because of the amazing Sleepy Reader, who is a YouTuber and one of the first comic YouTubers that I ever saw, and he really helped me find all the good stuff about like 10 years ago. So he's been in it for a very long time, and he's also a subscriber, and he's seen some of the Back Corner Comics videos, and that really just makes me so happy because I really look up to him, and I hope he's doing good. But yeah, so Richard Corbin colored a few of the stories in this magazine format, and here is one that he colored called El Spirito, or The Spirit. And as you can tell, this has the typical Corbin coloring, the rendering that he does for his own comics he does here, and you're getting kind of like the best version of this story, in my opinion, because you have Corbin coloring it. You know, like these characters are standing out so much more than they would have with the regular flat coloring. And look at that. That is just, this is probably one of the most gorgeous panels, not only in terms of the spirit, but in comics in general, you know? This is also a really funny story. Most of the stuff in here is funny, more geared towards the ha-has. Not a lot of tears, but that doesn't mean that Will Eisner doesn't make you like shed a tear or two. You know, for the specific time period, there is a story in, I believe, one of these magazines that talks about a shooter, a person shooting, killing people in public, and I think that was not something that was very common at that specific time, but also just, you know, talking about it in an honest way. This story is super, super creepy. You get kind of the story from the killer's perspective, and you're like looking not like through his eyes, but through his freaking eyelids, man. It's so, so freaky, so scary. Um, it is so weird and so abstract. You know, it goes to show Will Eisner has this voracious versatility. Here's the order sheet. I always like seeing that in older comics because you can't use them anymore. There is a bit of a sidekick character who is a racist caricature. Apparently, Will Eisner never wanted that. His editors did. I don't know how true that is because he's in a lot of stories, but whatever. This is a comic of its time, and Will Eisner does not stand or did not stand behind none of that. So I believe this is another Corbin colored piece of artwork, and we'll get into more of those. And look at this. Oh my God, it's a Spirit magazine, dude. Like, this is the best way to read the Spirit. And I know it's probably impossible, but if we ever get like more collections of the Spirit, I hope they do it in this format because it is fantastic. You get some editorial stuff every now and again. But yeah, just want to flip through this stuff. These are nice, thick. Look at that. He also, like Will Eisner, also played with a lot of style and story approach too. Sometimes, you know, the Spirit doesn't even show up until the end, and the story's more focused on the side characters, which I love so much. This one involves romance. It's been a while since I read it, so I can't like really give you an overview on the story, but he would do stuff like this, very like Mad inspired. I don't know if this is inspired by Mad, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like Mad had a lot of strips like this. More colored. I don't believe Corbin colored this. No, Corbin did not color this. But very, very fun. You get these colored stories in here. And Warren Magazine typically had colored stories in their anthology magazines. If you're familiar with 1984, you know that Corbin's Mutant World was published in there, and that was the colored story within that magazine. Beautiful planets and stuff. Will Eisner just had the juice. Easily one of the best Golden Age artists that kind of evolved and didn't stop working in the Golden Age. I really wish Fletcher Hanks continued because who knows what influence he would have really had on the mainstream comics if he had stayed around. But this is not that video. I just like talking about good stuff, guys. Corbin colored this for sure. I know that for certainty. Look at these like great house ads for the Spirit, you know. This guy got shot in the arm. He's not doing too good. And I love, you know, this. This is very typical of Warren magazines of the time. Some editorial stuff. I think this, no, this is not it at all. I don't believe. look at this, guys. If you ever see, you know, these in a bin for like $6, $7, pick it up. You know, you don't have to collect them all like me. I'm a freak. You know, I have to get one to whatever. But you can pick one of these up, spend a great afternoon, ignore your significant other, and read a comic, you know, for 30 minutes. They love that. I think this is colored by Corbin here. Yeah, let's just get through it. If you're not sold on this already, or if you're not sold on the Spirit, you're playing yourself. You owe it to yourself. Read some Spirit. Darwin Cook did this amazing run on the Spirit, which is going to be collected in a kind of absolute sized edition by Scott Dundier's publication. I forget the name of it. They're doing a ton of new artist editions. And yeah, get the dynamism going on. Just so fun, so cool, so different. Lots of sewer stuff. I think Eisner loved drawing the sewer. I believe the Golden Age stuff is collected later on, mostly through the kitchen sink stuff, even though there's some of this. This is a really good storyline. The dramatic lighting here. Like, you know, pause the video. You know, I'm crying right now. That's how amazing it looks, okay? Let's look at the color store here. Very fun. Here's that character that, you know, is unfortunate, but he is cool. You know, you can tell here the wording is kind of messed up, but he is an interesting character that does have agency, and he does get his own story, so he's not just a Trotsky or whatever. The Return of Vino Red, which is red wine, if you know Spanish. I know Spanish. Yo hablo español. Very good stuff, guys. Pick these up. You know, like I said, if you can find them for a good price, they are worth your time and your money. But do not, and I repeat, do not spend an egregious amount on this issue. It is good, but it is not $100. I went into a comic shop and I saw a copy and I was like, oh, I want, can I please, I want to buy it. And maybe that was a mistake because the guy was like, it's $100. And I was like, not me, dude. And then I ran to eBay and I spent $10 on it. So yeah, this is the Spirit in the Warren Magazine format that Kitchen Sink later picked up and finished out. But thank you for watching. This is Back Corner Comics. If you like the Spirit, if you're interested in the Spirit, comment down below. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.